Bueno, pues buenos días a todos. Los que estáis en streaming escuchándonos, muchas gracias. Bienvenidos a este acto de presentación y lanzamiento de la Estrategia Transnacional de Lucha contra
Launching of the Transnational Strategy of work and action to control the spread of Pampas grass. Here I have with us the representative for the Regional Government of Cantabria, Guillermo Blanca, Mr. Lucio, and also the representative for our region Cantabria of SEO BirdLife. I'm here on behalf of the AMECA Association as coordinators of the project. My name is Santiago García de Renteria, and I'm here to tell you about the strategy, about the scope. At this event, where different organizations from the Atlantic Arc, from Spain, from France, from Portugal, at different levels of the administration, including the European Commission and also the private sector. We're all going to tell you what problems we're facing connected with Pampas grass and why this strategy is particularly relevant and why we all want to support and be signatories of this strategy, joining the team. We would have loved to meet you all face-to-face at an event, not online as we are, but unfortunately, because of the current situation, we decided to go ahead with it online. We will have two different channels. For those of you who are following us on streaming, one of the channels for the original, whether it's Spanish, French, Portuguese, or English, and the other one for the translation into English. I hope that's practical for us all. And we will start with a video of the presentation of a strategy, which is...
with the financial support of the LIFE program of the European Commission.
Muy bien. Muy bien, vamos a dar paso.
Right then. So we're now ready to hear from Mr. Guillermo Blanco, the Regional Minister in Cantabria for Rural Development, farming, fisheries, food industry, and the environment. And they have been working with his LIFE project as one of the main providers of funding together with the European Commission. Mr. Blanco, thank you so much, Santiago. Good morning to all of you, and particularly good morning to those who are following us online. We are presenting the transnational strategy for action against Cortaderia selloana. The Regional Government of Cantabria is particularly proud of this kick-off event. I would like to greet particularly Mr. Flavaris, the representative of the European Commission, the Director for Diversity, Forestry and Desert and Demographic Event, Mr. Marquinez. Welcome. Dear friends from Portugal, Ms. Sarmento and Mr. Philippe Sauvage, nice to meet you both. And I would like to greet all the representatives from the regions in Spain, Galicia, Asturias, the Basque Country, the representatives of local institutions and the private companies that have joined us for this strategy. Also the representatives from the third sector, including SEO BirdLife, with Mr. Santiago Garcia Renteria as coordinator of the Life Stop Cortaderia program from the Amica Association. There's no doubt that our region, Cantabria, is at the center of this struggle and actions against this invasive species, Pampas grass. There's no doubt that Cantabria is one of the European regions that's suffering most from Cortaderia selloana. The plumero in Spanish, Herba das Campas in Portuguese, Herbe de la Pampa in French, or Pampas grass in English. There's no doubt that our region is the European territory that has raised most awareness for this particular problem and pooling most resources to stop its spread. We know that our actions will never be successful unless we engage more people, more organizations, more resources beyond our regional borders. Just like COVID-19, environmental problems will only be solved if we have collaboration actions that will coordinate us all for our efficiency. That's why we're here today with this Life Stop Cortaderia project, this strategic partnership so that all public and private organizations that are in charge of spatial planning and management, so that we can join forces against this invasive species. This transnational strategy is part of the Life 17 project, urgent measures for controlling the spread of Pampas grass, Cortaderia selloana in the Atlantic area, Life Stop Cortaderia, a project totally devoted to control the spread of Pampas grass in the period covering 2018 to 2022. This transnational partnership joins forces of organizations in the third sector, public institutions, research centers, the European Commission, the Regional Government of Cantabria, the Spanish Ministry for Environmental Transition and Demographic Challenge, the Biodiversity Foundation, the Regional Government of Galicia, the City Council of Santander, and private companies like Astander, Solvay, and Viesgo. Our handbook on best practices gathers all the information collected over 2 decades of hard work against this invasive species. Our transnational strategy against Cortaderia selloana has one fundamental objective: coordinating our efforts, being more efficient against Pampas grass, so that everybody who's responsible can collect the best possible information and knowledge and methodologies we want to raise awareness about the environmental challenge that Pampas grass involves. We want to foster actions against this invasive strategy, joining forces in this transnational and transregional project with a scope that will work both in the mid and long term. Because even if we solve the problem in our area, we won't manage to do it right if neighboring regions don't do so as well. That's why we're working together in the Atlantic arc. This is the turning point. Let me remind you as well that our Stop Cortaderia project has a dual focus, both environmental and social, with 18 people who've been working for almost 4 years now, people with disabilities, working to stop the spread of Pampas grass very professionally, with full engagement and as role models for sustainable development goals, with the motto, leaving no one behind at the forefront. We have here with us public institutions with leading representatives in charge of the natural milieu in the Atlantic arc, with statewide and regional institutions in France, Spain and Portugal, with the European Commission, with the third level of public institutions as well, that's local institutions, including the Santander City Council, the Federation of Municipalities in the region of Cantabria, and the Council of Vilanova de Gaia in Portugal. Last but not least, let me remind you that companies in our region, Cantabria, are doing something very new and different to help at the Stop Cortaderia project. We're starting today and with this kick-off event for this strategy that will continue until 2022. I'm sure that all the signatories that we will manage to join us will help us do so. Thank you so much, Guillermo, for your fantastic background. The idea was that Mr. Flavaris from the European Commission would be addressing us all now, but there are some technical problems, so I will now take the floor. Well, my name is Santiago García de Renteria. I am coordinator of the LIFE project, Stop Cortaderia, this 4-year project that started in 2018, running until 2022, and coordinated by the Association Amica, the association I'm here on behalf of. And we're working together with AMPROS and CERCA here in Cantabria, and SEO BirdLife as well. We also have Vilanova de Gaia local chamber, the Technical Institute in Coimbra, and all of this in a project that work both with environmental and social concerns, and that's why around 20 people in our project, forestry workers, people with disabilities, all of them, are doing a fantastic job. Again, let me remind you that this is not an occupational project. They're true professionals and they're proving their mettle every day. Our project works at 3 different levels. One of them has to do with strategy, with dissemination in the whole of the Atlantic arc, in France, in northern Spain, and in the north of Portugal. Then, in research and training, we're working both in Cantabria and in Portugal. And for the eradication of Pampas grass, we are currently working only in our region, Cantabria. So, our transnational strategy has a strategic focus, obviously, And we're now setting the first stone for this strategy. We will soon hear from Felipe González from SEO BirdLife. The idea is that both public and private partners in the Atlantic arc are joining forces, and a good evidence of that is given in our handbook with best practices for action on Pampas grass. All that information will be available starting today on our website in the different languages, in French, Portuguese and Spanish, including English as well. We will also be sending the information to a list of some 1,200 organizations working on biodiversity and many other stakeholders that are involved in political responsibilities in our different territories. In the Atlantic arc, sorry, can I have my presentation up on the screen and share the screen? We're also organizing events such as seminars for exchange of experiences, and we organize meetings every 6 months to debate and present progress that has been made. We're working on dissemination on social media, with mass media. Let me also remind you that in Portugal and our region, Cantabria, we're working, well, you can see there our icon and motto. That's where we receive information for early warning and alert. People inform us where Pampas grass is found, and we've managed to keep it at stake, keep it under control, very much so far. Again, citizens' collaboration is terribly useful for this species that is very much connected with anthropic habitats. Here we can see the image from our app with all the alerts and early warning information that we've been sent from citizens so far. Apart from that, our partners in Portugal are using their own app for something very similar. Our training activities are proving very useful to give information to journalists, to farmers, and also to disseminate research, basic research on Pampas grass that is proving very useful to then better manage it. Here we can see a picture to give you an idea of how useful citizens' collaboration is. In the valleys of our region, we have work groups working to eradicate Pampas grass, mostly closer to the coast, which is where we have most of the problem. We've eliminated some 199 different points. 25 hectares have been covered. And not only in the valleys, but also in protected areas closer to the coast. That's where the most relevant habitats have been found for the species. And here we can see different activities that have been carried out. We have the Ollambre conservation area, where some 85 hectares have been covered, 35 hectares in the dunes, 2.5 hectares in the next area that we can see up on the screen. The Ajo River mouth will be covered in winter this year. The Santoña marshes, the Agüera River. You can see there the hectares that have been covered at each of those sites. the Santoña area is particularly difficult because it's larger, because of the anthropic activity, because of the different geographic areas that Pampas grass has covered. Well, we have all that information geo-referenced, both at a surface level with details about the work that's carried out. And just to finish now, I've prepared some images just to give you an idea what these areas used to look like before the work team were there, and they changed, the before and after comparative.
Ahí se puede ver el antes y el después.
You see the before and after comparison. There was no plantation of trees in this case, but the vegetation was practically covered by Pampas grass before the work started. This is the quarry in Santo.
Después, ahora está mejor porque ya ha pasado tiempo.
The comparison before and after, and you can see how different the vegetation looks. This is in the Noja area, a prairie, the meadows looking a lot happier. So I think that's probably enough from me, and we will now hear from Mr. Flavaris. We have solved the technical problems. Mr. Flavaris will be addressing us on behalf of the European Commission, because some 55% of the project is funded by the European Commission as part of their policy on invasive species, which is what Mr. Flavaris, I believe, is going to be telling us about. Good morning, Mr. Flavaris. Can you hear us okay?
I was trying to share a presentation. It seems it's not possible. Can we activate this? No. Okay, so I cannot have slides. Yes, thank you all for inviting me to attend and present at this event. I will try to give you a short overview of the European Union policy on invasive alien species and the LIFE program. Invasive alien species are consistently identified as one of the main drivers of biodiversity loss, and that is in all environments, terrestrial, freshwater, and marine. All global assessments demonstrate this. For example, very recently, it was the Intergovernmental Science and Policy Platform on Biodiversity, IPBES, naming invasive alien species as one of the 5 main drivers of biodiversity decline, close to pollution, climate change, land use change. Combating invasive alien species is a main aspect of the European Union biodiversity strategy, and this year in May the European Commission adopted the new biodiversity strategy for 2030. It is a comprehensive action plan aiming to recover the European biodiversity. It includes specific commitments to be achieved by 2030 and also includes a target in relation to invasive alien species. The regulation 1143 of 2014 remains the main tool for achieving the target on invasive alien species. And I will quickly try to explain the central elements of this regulation. The central point is the provision for the adoption of a list of invasive alien species of union concern, what we call a union list. So this is a small subset of all the possible invasive alien species for which the member states of the union agree between them that they will undertake coordinated action across the union. Okay, I think. So I think now the presentation is on the screen. I couldn't do it earlier. So the regulation describes the criteria that need to be met in order to include a species on this union list. The examination of this criteria is done on the basis of a risk assessment, and in this procedure the European Commission is assisted by scientists appointed by the member states to provide advice. This is the so-called Scientific Forum on Invasive Alien Species. And in the end of the process, it is the member states that have to agree by their vote at the Committee on Invasive Alien Species to include species on the union list. Since the entry into force of the regulation in 2015, the union list has gradually reached to include today 66 species. For the species on the union list, the member states are obliged to take a number of measures that are described in the regulation as well. These are preventive measures, early detection and rapid eradication, and management. As I try to demonstrate on this schematic on the left side, the union list by definition includes only a small subset of all invasive alien species. Furthermore, member states can take measures for other species that are considered of national concern, and the Spanish and the Portuguese legislation have such examples. They have, for example, the Spanish catalogue, and both the Spanish and the Portuguese legislation, as I understand, include the Pampas grass, Cortaderia selloana, a species which currently is not on the union list, but this year we started a risk assessment on the species. So this is the first step to evaluate whether we can include it on the union list. At the moment, a very close relative, the purple Pampas grass, Cortaderia ubata, is already on the union list. I will continue with a few words on the LIFE program. As you probably know, it was started in 1992, initially to contribute to the establishment of the Natura 2000 network. Later on, the scope expanded to cover other environmental and biodiversity issues, as well as actions on climate. Since 1992, already the LIFE program is the main source for funding actions addressing invasive alien species. It's over 300 projects that have been financed, and some earlier projects also in the Iberian Peninsula have targeted Cortaderia selloana in the past at a perhaps more limited scale than this project. The LIFE program existed prior to the adoption of the regulation on invasive alien species. So many of these projects on invasive alien species in the past developed knowledge that contributed to the adoption of the regulation. And after the adoption of the regulation, LIFE projects continue to contribute to the implementation around all aspects by, for example, developing innovative practices around prevention, early detection of invasive alien species, methodologies for the rapid eradication, and also on management and other horizontal issues. For example, LIFE projects have tested several different ways to manage invasive alien species, and most importantly, they raise awareness at local, national, and transnational level, and by bringing together and involving different stakeholders and citizens. So this is a very big added value of the LIFE projects. I'm very happy to see that already halfway in its implementation, the LIFE project Stop Cortaderia, as already presented by the previous speaker, has already delivered important results. I can only encourage you to continue in this direction, disseminate widely your results of the project, and keep us in the European Commission informed, as such information can eventually help to include the Pampas grass also on the list of invasive alien species of union concern. Finally, I hope that the endorsement today of the Transnational Strategy will accelerate the efforts and to manage the Pampas grass across a wider area, across the Atlantic arc, because you have to remember that the management of such species requires a long-term effort. If efforts at some point stop, the species will come back if it has not been managed effectively. So thank you very much for the invitation to attend the meeting. Thank you very much for your attention, and please do not hesitate to contact us for more information on the Union policy on invasive alien species. This is our email address and our dedicated site where you can find more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Mr. Flevaris.
Thank you, Mr. Flevaris. Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to ask you a brief question. Do you have a specific estimated date for this Cortaderia risk assessment? How long will it take to be included as an invasive plant? Do you have a deadline?
Sorry, were you addressing me? Because I tried to manage the translation and I cannot get it back.
Can you hear me now?
No, I have to switch to YouTube again to get to English.
Okay, I would like to know if you have any kind of period of time to be approved the risk assessment of Cortaderia.
It's this year we gave, it's not us, myself and my colleagues writing the risk assessments, we give it to a contract, to a scientific consortium. So it's the scientists that know the species that write it. And we signed the contract beginning of this month. So the risk assessment should be, the first draft should be ready end of October 21. As I tried to explain in my presentation, it is a very long process until we examine afterwards with a scientific forum and discuss it with the member states. So it's, unfortunately, the bad news is it's not going to happen soon, but the process has started.
Okay, thank you very much. Bueno, voy a dar paso ahora a Felipe González.
I'll now give the floor to Felipe González. He is the delegate of SEO BirdLife in Cantabria. He's a partner of this project. He's been fighting against invasive plants and the Pampas grass for many years in Cantabria. Thank you very much, Santiago. Good morning, everybody. As was already mentioned by our Minister for the Environment and the coordinator of this project, this strategy, Transnational Strategy against Pampas grass, is part of the action of the LIFE Stop Cortaderia project. The basic objective is coordinated a greater number of actors throughout the Atlantic arc in an effective action to fight against Pampas grass. This fight against invasive plants is full of successes and defeats. We have more than 2 decades of experience, and I think it's important to put this on the table, especially for new partners, people who want to deal with this problem now. As It was already mentioned, this project has this dimension along the Atlantic arc. This is the map of the Pampas grass presence. It's very wide. It's widely spread, and Cantabria is one of the regions where most of this species is present. But there's a continuum. There's a continuum from France to Portugal. And that's why it's important to tackle this matter, to be more intensive in the fight against this invasive plant. It's important to have a coordinated effort. And all this transnational strategy, looking at having a more effective struggle, and that the greater number of actors adhere to this transnational strategy along the Atlantic arc. Along these 2 decades of fighting against Cortaderia, we know how projects succeed or not, and it's important to have a maintenance of actions. Today, we need environmental restoration. We need to find new plans, and we need a planning that goes beyond action and restoration. We need to have more resilient spaces against the colonization of Pampas grass. This strategy has key elements, and we try to convey this message. And you can read it on the document. First, we need to have the best possible information. In LIFE project, we have scientific entities, the University of Coimbra, with specialists who are dedicated to the study of Pampas grass, and particularly from the mechanisms of reproduction and dispersion and spread. We have new knowledge in the University of Santiago de Compostela with discoveries about parasites of this plant and species that can be in competition. Obviously, the strategy looks for adequate methodological tools. So we are reviewing experiences, we are reviewing good practice and all the matters that we need to adequately plan our interventions. And the goal is to be a forum for contact between all the partners. It's important to have a network. All entities, all authorities who want to fight against this plant can find advice and assistance, so that you do not feel alone when fighting against this invasive species. So it's good to be part of a wider network. We need to have a common vision for action. We put the accent on the restoration. It's not just about removing an invasive species. It's about going beyond that. All these spaces that are now occupied by Pampas grass, these are degraded areas. Most of the case, we need to recover biodiversity spaces in those areas. So we need to do more and to restore vegetation, to restore the land. In a nutshell, to go back to the green infrastructure. In this project, we are sharing various pilot experiences in order to open a new way towards restoration. And last but not least, the goal is to promote greater awareness. This project was born in Cantabria, and there's a great social awareness with regard to this problem. This allowed us to have this project with such dimension. Without awareness, without public awareness, this would have been impossible, because it's a serious problem. So it's very important indeed to include this in our strategy, disseminating information and raise awareness above all. In the strategy and in the accompanying document, which is the Good Practice Manual, there's a review of our last knowledge and findings about the ecology of the species. And above all, we insist on the value of transforming these spaces in spaces for diversity. I'll give you an example, a photo that was taken yesterday. It was an industrial site. We would think that this is not favorable to nature, but with adequate techniques, it can be transformed into a new space with ecosystemic services. In these documents, we put emphasis on these aspects. As I said, the strategy is complemented by another document. It's the Good Practice Manual, which includes a variety of experiences, and it is oriented towards the correct planning and implementation of actions. So we give advice and assistance, and our task is to focus on the adequate techniques, especially for non-specialist authorities or for people who have little resources. So we reviewed all the experiences, and we consider that there's a lot to learn from this knowledge and these findings in order to be efficient. As for content, we have a series of official documents that have been approved. The National Strategy to fight against Pampas grass in Spain, in Cantabria, and other plans and strategies in Europe. 26 technicians of 17 entities have participated, and 2 exclusive events were organized to debate and design this document. So there were many contributions into these documents. This document, in the new stage, will have new contributions that we will include until the end of the Stop Cortaderia LIFE project. The adherence or addition to the strategy, what the signatories do, what they do is to declare the commitment and willingness to work on combating these invasive species within the scope of their competencies, skills, or competencies. Because most of the case, these administrations manage the environment, but in other cases, these partners are voluntary in their commitments. The idea is to contribute to improving the environment. Apart from the formal adhesion, the idea is to have a larger number of stakeholders and people committed. These signatories have specific plans for this strategy and will include their best practice. The addition to this document presents lots of advantages for the new members. In many cases, it can give visibility to their initiatives. We have a web portal, we are present in the social media, and we are disseminating all the new initiatives against Cortaderia in the Atlantic Arc. We give technical assistance, especially for non-specialized entities, and we need an umbrella so that nobody feels alone in the fight against Pampas grass, so that you can feel that you're assisted in the fight against this plant. As for the contents of the strategy, there are more than 70 pages. And the emphasis is put on these key aspects that I mentioned before. Basically, we have to act from outside to the inside, acting from the outside to the inside, stopping the invasion and the spread. Stopping that, it's important to develop tools as the early alert network in Stop Cortaderia project. We've really seen its efficiency in this mechanism. People at large do participate, and we are more efficient when trying to control the spread. Pampas grass is moving along infrastructures. This initial plant that you can see on a specific and isolated territory is spreading very quickly, and we need to remove it as quickly as possible. the Pampas grass starts from specific dense sites, cores, and then spread starts all around. We need to design early warning networks. We need to plan in an adequate way all of interventions. Sometimes the projects are not really effective, they're not well prepared from the beginning, and this is just a waste of resources. We believe that it's better to do little but well done, and we need more effectiveness. We then review all the best practice. That's in the best practice manual, of course, and we are now updating this document because we are launching new projects in the LIFE program. And these are very good examples for actions for all types of environments and sites, especially those in which we find Pampas grass. Restoration is a key word. We need to have global and ambitious actions for diversity restoration, especially maintenance. We need to carry out maintenance after removal and eradication. How can we restore these spaces so that they're not recolonized again? So maintenance is key. Shepherds and having livestock on all of these areas and spaces is fundamental. Along this session, we will show you these examples of directed herding. Communication and dissemination and awareness is fundamental. Who can adhere to this strategy? It's open to all partners, to all entities, to all authorities, all public administrations with direct competencies, companies, businesses. And this is one of the main features of this LIFE project. We wanted to involve businesses and companies. Businesses in general do manage territories and spaces, and their activities also can cause the presence of these species. And we have companies, public works companies, management of green areas. There are many associations, foundations, research centers, and media. Here, everybody can adhere to the strategy. You can all do something to contribute to the struggle and fight against invasive species. And this strategy is open to all partners. You need to fill a form. That's all. And this strategy is available on our website, Stop Cortaderia, and you can download it. And you can also download the Good Practice Manual. And now I give the floor to Santiago. Thank you very much, Felipe. I remind you that we have a goal of 100 partners adhering to the strategy. What do you think about that? Well, today will be more than 25 partners or parties, and we'll have more and more with time. And along this project, we have phone calls from companies, city councils, and many organizations. They want us to help them. They are concerned about the problem. And we'll have an ambassador, Mr. Guillermo Blanco, our minister. And I suppose all municipalities are going to be offered to adhere to the strategy, and we are very confident indeed. We have still 2 years ahead of us in order to look for new stakeholders and new members. And we need a real commitment. We want the efficacy and the real commitment, and not just a signature. As Felipe said, all organizations can adhere, and now we're going to give the floor to public and then private organizations. There are new members. Some of these are potential members. And first of all, we'd like to contact with the national authorities in Portugal, Spain, and France.
Starting with the Spanish Ministry for Environmental Transition and Demographic Challenge, Mr. Jorge Martinez, General Director for Biodiversity at the Spanish Ministry. Can you hear me okay? Good morning. Great. I would like to start with some acknowledgements. Firstly, the LIFE program. It has to be acknowledged how the LIFE program has done so much for Spain for better preservation of biodiversity, of the environment, and this is one more time. Also, the Regional Government of Cantabria and Amica, Ambros, Cerca, Gaia, SEO BirdLife, all the fantastic partners that have made this huge effort, this list of both public institutions and non-public partners that are doing so much to stand for our biodiversity. I would also like to remind you that Mr. Flavaris said it. Invasive species are one of the 5 leading concerns for biodiversity in our area. And this struggle, this action to stop their spread is not an easy task. How can we do it? Well, first and foremost, knowledge, because for many years, Cortaderia was used, and we were completely ignorant about the threat they posed. So again, knowledge, so we can be cautious and know how to prevent these problems. The second element would be awareness raising. And in Spain, a new bill has been passed recently for better control of wildlife species before they come into Spain. That bill will be enacted soon. And we're talking about preventive action. What do we mean by this? Well, let's not forget that invasive species are particularly a problem in more degraded environments. And this is why a preventive tool has to be, definitely, to keep our ecosystems in as good a shape as possible. The Cortaderia genus is on the Spanish list of invasive species since 2013, quite a long time. And the Jubata subspecies is also on the European list. But what about the selloana cortaderia, the most common type of Pampas grass? Well, that's not on the list. Hopefully, Mr. Flavaris said that soon that will be on the European list. And that will be a fundamental acknowledgement, because invasive species don't care very much about political borders. That's why better collaboration amongst different regions are paramount for actions to be effective. Let me tell you that our Spanish ministry has a strategy for Cortaderia that was approved back in 2018, which is very much coherent with what the Transnational Strategy proposes. And that's why, logically, our ministry, the Spanish ministry, will very happily join the team of the Transnational Strategy. Very happily also, because we have our partners both from Portugal and from France. Again, evidence that better collaboration amongst different territories is one of the keys to the success of this recipe. And just to prove our engagement and commitment, not just in the case of Cortaderia, but for other invasive species, I would like to tell you how this LIFE project will be successful, not just because it fosters international collaboration, but also because it will engage so many different partners, different in number and in scope. We need you. We need all institutions and organizations, whether they have powers and competencies in this field or not. For instance, the Mobility and Urban Agenda Ministry in Spain has done a lot in the past in this field, and now will be one more time to do so. But I'm not just talking about public institutions, also NGOs and private companies, which again is something the Transnational Strategy has done fantastically well. That's why we want to join the team. We want to give you all the support we possibly can for your strategy, for our strategy. Well, thank you so much, Jorge Martinez. We're very, very happy to hear your enthusiastic support and your passion for this project. It's fantastic news for us. We will next hear from Ms. Sandra Sarmento, Director for Conservation of Nature and Forests in the north of Portugal, the ICNF. The Institute. Good morning. Well, before I start as such, I would like to greet and thank the organizers of this event for their work, for the presentation of the strategy, and also I would like to thank the Portuguese Institute for the Conservation of Nature and Forests joining this strategy with different partners from different levels, from different organizations for the control of this species that definitely doesn't care about borders. An invasive species that is particularly clever when it comes to colonizing degraded areas. This is a species that is threatening very important habitats also in protected areas. It's very good at adapting to different circumstances and habitats, and that's why it's particularly a threat for biodiversity. The Portuguese Institute for the Conservation of Nature and Forests in Portugal, together with other organizations in our country, have been studying the better use of integrated policies to do our best for the preservation of biodiversity. That's what we do. Also, in the case of threatened areas because of invasive species, we work on different strategies, collaborating with different partners, working on dissemination of the know-how we collect, and also in the implementation of new European regulations for invasive species. Let's not forget that Cortaderia is present in Portugal to a larger or lesser extent, depending on the regions, more so in degraded areas, as I said, which means that we have to collaborate at different levels. Pampas grass will be controlled if we act preventively, also focusing even more so in those areas with more environmental value, that is protected areas, Natura 2000 network sites, and areas of different level of protection by Portuguese institutions. Again, we want to say loud and clear that we give full adherence to this strategy, and just like our Spanish and French colleagues, we're working very hard on actions and strategies so that we can cover as many possible territories and councils as we possibly can, also with early alert and warning systems, and raising awareness amongst the different partners in our country, so that the strategy can be known, and so that funding will be raised in due course. We will go ahead and make headway in our mission if we do it right. Just as our colleagues said before me, the uprooting activities are very important. We need, as I said before, raise the necessary funding, and that will be possible, again, if we raise the necessary awareness, obviously in our case with the Portuguese ministry, to provide the necessary funding for better control of the spread. Again, congratulations to all of us. If we join forces, we will be stronger in our actions to control the spread of Pampas grass. Thank you so much. Sandra Sarmiento, muito obrigado, as you say in Portuguese. We look forward to collaborating with you all in our activities, and we are very happy to have both the Polytechnic Institute in Coimbra and the Vilanova de Gaia local chamber. We know that you are very good partners, and we are very happy for your enthusiasm and passion as well. We will next hear from the representative of the Conservatoire d'Espace Naturel in Aquitaine in France. We will hear from Mr. Philippe Sauvage. Bonjour.
I'm going to speak in French. I'm sorry, I cannot speak in English, but I understand it. I'd like to present you the Conservatoire d'Espace Naturel from Nouvelle Aquitaine. It's an association, the Natural Spaces Conservatoire, and we work with many different partners and stakeholders in the Nouvelle Aquitaine region in France. We are supported by the region called Nouvelle Aquitaine and by other administrations and institutions, for instance, the province. The Conservatoire d'Espace Naturel in our region is working on 57,000 hectares. We have the protection work on these 57,000 hectares, 100 employees, and we work a lot on these areas. On Cortaderia, that in France is called Pampas grass too. Basically, it's found on our territory, and more specifically in the Basque coast, or in wetlands and marshes, especially in the southwest of France and along the Basque country coast and the land. We are the managers of 21 sites. The third of these sites are facing a serious problem of invasion by the Pampas grass, especially 3 regional nature reserves and 4 ecological compensation sites that are affected. The CEN carries out the inventory of the species, including Cortaderia. These observations and data are registered in our database and at national and regional level, especially in the Natural History Museum in Paris. The idea is to carry out work in order to eradicate and remove the species in partnership with associations, local associations, especially for labor insertion institutions, also with agricultural schools. We have students working with us. And we are also trying to raise awareness amongst our partners. We work with a great number of partnerships, especially local authorities, municipalities, and commitment is to give them information, because they shouldn't plant and create new infestation areas, because this is potential infestation in our region. So try to avoid this plant. So I'm very happy that the Conservatoire d'Espaces Naturels is adhering to this strategy. It's a group collaboration with the other countries about the invasion and spread of Cortaderia. Florent Bektuki is in the forum. He is going to help me if you have specific questions to ask me. I'd like to congratulate you. Thank you for accepting us in this working group. Thank you.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Philippe Sauvage.
Thank you, Mr. Philippe Sauvage. In the framework of this program, we're going to organize a seminar in Aquitaine, in Nouvelle Aquitaine, in autumn 2021. I hope you will participate in the framework of collaboration of this strategy. We'll count on you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I will give the floor to another administrative layer, the regions and autonomous communities in Spain and other countries, in order to give them information and to have their adherence to the strategy. From Galicia, first of all, Mrs. Susana Cuesta, she is the General Subdirector for Biodiversity and Hunting Resources of the Ministry for the Environment in La Xunta de Galicia. Can you hear me? Hello, everybody. I can hear you perfectly well. Good morning. As you said, my name is Susana. I'm the Vice Director for Biodiversity. I speak on behalf of the Directorate General of Natural Heritage of Xunta de Galicia. I'd like to thank the organization for inviting us to participate in this conference, and to all the people who have made an effort to ensure that the work carried out so far has resulted in the Transnational Strategy for the Fight Against Cortaderia in the Atlantic Arc, which is the document that you present here today. I'd like to apologize for the absence of the General Director, Belén do Campo. Due to problems in her agenda, she cannot join us today, because we have the debate on general budget in the regional government. But I'd like to convey to you her thanks for the invitation and her congratulations for the work done. I'd like to explain what is the reason of our adherence in Galicia. In Galicia, the Directorate General of Natural Heritage is the department within the Regional Ministry of the Environment, has competencies with regard to the conservation, protection, sustainable use, and we have other functions, especially for the development of new functions for developing measures and instruments for the monitoring, protection, control, and conservation of the elements that make up biodiversity, paying particular attention to invasive species. As a result, this Directorate General has been working in recent years. In 2012, we launched a technical proposal for a strategic plan for the management of invasive species in Galicia. In this context, a risk analysis system was developed. We have now a technical tool for the elaboration and prioritization of proposals. We wanted to develop a risk analysis system. The idea is to prioritize and elaborate a list of invasive species in our region, including Cortaderia, especially along the Atlantic Arc, but more specifically in our autonomous community. As a result of the establishment of priorities for the management of invasive species, a program was set up focusing on two lines of action, because we are competent on the Natura 2000 network activities. We have two axes for action. One of these axes is the local containment of invasive species, with the idea of protecting priority sites for the conservation of native species, mainly in Natura 2000 sites. All this against exotic invasive species with a high risk of impacting our biodiversity, such as Cortaderia, but also where there is a possibility to eradicate them successfully at a regional level. Within this line of action, and in relation to the management of Pampas grass, the regional ministry has developed a detailed map of the distribution, and we carried out estimates of the abundance of Cortaderia, especially in coastal areas of the Galician network of protected spaces and neighboring areas. In addition, we have carried out control and eradication actions according to the degree of threat to the elements of biodiversity. The efforts and actions for the control of Cortaderia have been focused all these years mainly on the natural coastal areas, following different criteria. We have prioritized sensitive areas and invasive plants. The Autonomous Community of Galicia has also actively participated through the working group on invasive species within the Flora and Fauna Committee. We have developed the strategy for the management, control, and possible eradication of Pampas grass and other Cortaderia species. This has been approved by the State Commission for Natural Heritage and Biodiversity in 2018. This is a guiding framework for all the management tools that we adopted for the management of these invasive species. This is the context of what we're doing now and what has been done in Galicia until now with this species. The trend of this species in Galicia is spreading, it's expansive. This is happening in all the areas along the Atlantic arc. And for this reason, as part of the Stop Cortaderia project, we are working on drafting an action plan for the species, which is specific to Galicia, that will contribute, amongst different goals, to locating the target areas, quantifying the distribution of the species, proposing alternative methodologies for control and management of the species based on the information generated and previous knowledge in order to optimize resources. And we are working on raising awareness in society so that people are informed about the harmful effect on biodiversity. This plan seeks to generate a targeted, proportionate and realistic action that takes into account the current circumstances and the reality of the Galician territory. In view of the fact that the problem of Cortaderia transcends the scope of a single region, because we alone couldn't find, and it goes beyond a single country in Europe. And this is a problem that is shared by a good part of the regions along the Atlantic arc. In Galicia, we considered that it's very necessary to count on a tool that facilitates the coordination of actions against this species on the basis of common criteria in the area of distribution of this species. Therefore, with the aim of contributing to the fight against the main threats to the conservation of our natural heritage in Europe and in Spain, we take this opportunity and hence our commitment to adhere to the Transnational Strategy for the fight against Cortaderia in the framework of Stop Cortaderia project. Thank you all very much. That's all I wanted to say, and I hope the day will be very interesting and fruitful for you all. Thank you. Thank you, Susana. As the sub-director says, in the framework of this project, the action plan in Galicia is being launched with the same criteria as the strategy and the manual. We are working together. I'd like to ask you, what is the perception of the population in Galicia with regard to Pampas grass? Here, for instance, in Cantabria, the invasion has been so huge that everybody agrees that it's not a nice plant. For many people, people think it's a nice plant. Others think it's ugly. Well, we are working on awareness raising, dissemination, and environmental education. That is very important for us. There are many people that perceive that this plant is still very nice. But we've launched campaigns, and here in Galicia there is an expansion that is quite clear, and everybody sees it along the motorways. And people have been aware of the presence of this invasive plant, and many people call us, can we have this plant, can we remove it? People need information. Little by little, people are aware of this problem. People realize now that it's ugly and that we don't need this plant at all. Thank you very much, Susana. To continue with the various autonomous communities from the west to the east, now we go to Asturias. We'll listen to the General Director for Rural Planification and Natural Milieu, David Villar. Can you hear me, Felipe? Yes. I'll make an exception and I will take my mask off. These are complicated times, but here in our office we need to use the masks for prevention. I'd like to explain what we do. I'd like to thank the partnership, the Live Stop Cortaderia project. Thank you for inviting us into this project because it's very important. This transnational strategy against the Pampas grass is giving us power and visibility for our actions that we carry out locally, but we have a greater visibility. My name is David Villar, Director for the Natural Milieu and Rural Planification in the Government of Asturias. It's a long name, that's my position, but I represent the department that has competencies on Natura 2000 areas, and we manage invasive plants basically, and Cortaderia is one of them. We have an early alert center that we created in 2020 in order to fight against exotic invasive species. First of all, I'd like to give you data and facts and figures about this species and to illustrate our commitment. And this is in line with the strategy. In Asturias, we have a plan to eradicate Pampas grass that emanates from the national strategy. It started in 2018. From the western area of Asturias, we have actions in more than 500 sites along 28 municipalities. Almost all are on coastal areas and lower areas. As for results of this plan, in 2018, we eradicated 2,800,000 plants mechanically, 200 hectares. In 2019, 227 hectares, and in 2020 we continue. We have eliminated 800,000 plants and 56 hectares. The figures are very high. So in the last 3 years we have removed 5 million plants. But we have a real mid-term planning, and we will continue to invest in order to eradicate more plants. This plan that we launched carries out a control of the species, a potential eradication, which is very complex. But in 5 years to 7 years, we'll try to continue with this. We will invert the geographic expansion of this invasive plant because it's been developing in the last decades. We want to go backwards. We need to act on specific sites where this plant is more abundant, from the western area to the eastern areas, and then to go to the center of the region because we have a great abundance and persistence. On the first stage of the program, in the first 2 years, we worked on the ales of the region, western and eastern areas. So we would like to control the species, and we will carry out annual actions to avoid resprouting. With this methodology that is designed by the University of Oviedo, we will concentrate on the development of the species in the central area of Asturias with more anthropic action. We need to eradicate the plant from natural areas because of their more sensitive sites. And we would like to limit the presence of these species in the anthropic areas, central areas of Asturias. One of our last initiatives in 2020 is a series of pilot actions in very anthropic areas along roads or in rural areas, along regional roads between the various towns and cities, and we will coordinate different actions. We will work with the infrastructures authorities in order to be what is the competence between different plants, shrubs, and trees that are in competition with the plant Pampas glass. In 2019, we carried out a research project about the eradication and valorization of other species. We need good competitors' plants, and we want to introduce the competitors. In this campaign, we have intensified our work in protected areas of the national and Asturias protected areas with mechanical and manual methods, always in respect of our environmental values. We are now working on the natural reserve of Ria Villaviciosas, Cabo Peñas, or a special area in the Nuera River. In order to develop these actions, we made a consultation because local authorities are very important to us and municipalities. We have asked the municipalities to tell us where the plants are, especially in areas where there's resprouting. We want to consolidate the treatment so that we can avoid resprouting. It's not just fighting about a species, and we need funds for that. We allocate 400,000 euros every year against this species, but we need expert knowledge, good practice. We need the support between institutions and co-responsibility between administrations. This is then associated to the experience of other territories that have the same problem. We have a global perspective and a local focus. So we want to collaborate with other institutions and administrations that have the same problem. We need to be working together. So this Stop Cortaderia project is one of the best ideas that we can have. And this is for any environmental problem, because this is good for public awareness, and everybody then sees what is the problem, especially businesses, the population at large, and many authorities. I don't want to speak too much, but we are very honored, and we congratulate you for this important initiative. We are going to commit very seriously, and I hope you will attain your goals. Thank you very much, Felipe. That was my intervention. Thank you. Thank you, David. We had a joint meeting between your teams and our teams along the Deba River, because this is between Asturias and Cantabria. So we had this joint action between our two regions. Yes, I remember. Yes, you were along the border of the two regions, along the river. These are important areas. I know, Felipe, that this day was very important. Thank you very much. From the east to the west, we will go towards the Basque country. Well, the Basque country couldn't be here for problems of agenda, but their technicians have been part of our working groups, and they all do agree. So now we go to the municipal level. We will have 3 municipalities. We'll start in Portugal with Vila Nova de Gaia. They are partners of the LIFE project. And we will have José Valentín Pinto Miranda, Councillor for the Environment. Bon dia.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Todo bien.
Bon dia, as you say in Portuguese. Well, let me start by reminding us all that our initiative has to be greeted with particular happiness from Vila Nova, and that's why we're toasting here with port. Now is the time when a good bottle of port had to be opened. So we are having a toast here because the municipality of Vila Nova de Gaia is very proud to join the team, to be part of the strategy, and so that we can all do our utmost to eradicate Cortaderia in the Atlantic arc. We often hear that if we know ourselves properly and we know our enemy, there's no need to fear the battle. Well, this is a battle for us to control invasive species. And we are pooling all our resources to stop invasive species such as Pampas grass to stop it invading our territories and causing havoc, wreaking havoc at a social level, in our economy, the environment, obviously. So, again, we're all pushing in the same direction in our action to stop the spread of Cortaderia. We've started to see some of the results of our project. We now have a document for better awareness raising in society with the main stakeholders that can make a contribution to this strategy so that we can all be there. And again, this has been said before this morning, but it's true. The approach has to be very practical, very institutional, very overarching, so that success will remain in the mid and long term. That's what we need to do. And again, the turning point is here and now. It's the kickoff of the strategy, the launching of the work to come until 2022, where partners will come from the public institutions, the private sector, the third sector, and in our case, here in Vila Nova de Gaia, in Portugal, we've been covering this work for quite a few years. We have been gathering know-how and experience of how the species works in different types of territory. And again, we need to join forces, having broadly ranging partners. That's what we've been doing in the past. And that's why we want to contribute everything, all the knowledge and know-how we've been gathering for these joint efforts that we're making. So, again, I have my dear friend, Enrique, a very valuable partner in this project here. So, all the best from us, and thank you. Thank you so much, Enrique and Valentin from Vila Nova de Gaia, because you've been working mostly in public areas, public spaces in Vila Nova. Am I right in thinking so? That's right. We have had some sites where the species continue to expand and regerminate, resprout, but we're quite happy with the results. We are controlling the spread. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Well, I'm really looking forward to having a little taste of some of your port. So please, I'm sure that we will have the occasion to have a toast. Here it is. This is the bottle of port from Vila Nova de Gaia. So we'll just have to agree on a date and time where we can meet up and have our toast together. So we will next be hearing from the president of the Federation of Municipalities here in the region of Cantabria, in a region which is particularly badly hit by Pampas grass. Pablo, can you hear us? Yes, loud and clear. My name is Pablo Diestro, and on behalf of the Federation of Municipalities of Cantabria, we're particularly happy and relieved that this strategy has gone ahead on an issue that is very concerning for all of our municipalities. We are very grateful for all the work that you've carried out so far, for all the battles you've waged and won. And good evidence was that list of images you were showing us, the before and after comparison. That's the type of work that we're aiming to do. And what can we do from our federation, the Federation of Municipalities in the region of Cantabria? Well, we've recently held an event to provide more information on the eradication of Pampas grass, where we had 14 people, 14 experts attend that meeting, mostly technical experts at the councils that make up the federation. Logically, our federation doesn't have actual powers and competencies in environmental issues, but we have been gathering a lot of experience and know-how in actions connected with training, with dissemination, and we're sure that will help the strategy. And that's what we're prepared to do with our joining of the project. We are giving our full adherence to this project. We are part of the club now. And again, thank you very, very much, and congratulations for organizing the kickoff meeting for the launching of this strategy. Thank you so much, Pablo. I can tell you that we are currently working in a long list of local institutions, councils in our region here in Cantabria, and we will continue to do so, coordinating efforts with you at the Federation. Thank you. We will next be hearing from the City Council of Santander. We will hear from Ms. Margarita Rojo, local councillor for the environment in Santander. Thank you so much. On behalf of the City Council of Santander, as councillor of the environment, I'm particularly proud to be part of this launching. Santander is the capital city of our region, the largest municipality in our region as far as population is concerned. Sorry, I'm just stopping a moment because the sound doesn't seem to be working correctly. We can still hear Pablo from the Federation. That's what's going wrong. Great. I think Pablo's been muted. Great. So, as I was saying, the city of Santander is the capital city of our region, Cantabria, the municipality with the largest population, and we have the coastline of the Santander Bay as part of our territory with the very famous views. Santander has been working for a long time on biodiversity restoring wetlands and degraded areas and landscapes. Because of the transformation that our city has undergone over the recent decades, Cortaderia selloana has been making the most of that, spreading and invading our territory. Pampas grass is particularly invasive in rural areas, in the outskirts of cities, which has been a real cause for concern in our city because of the degradation of habitats, the loss of biodiversity, and more particularly in recent years, Pampas grass has made the most of the new industrial estates and residential estates that have gone up in the sprawl of the city of Santander. We've had a local strategy on biodiversity in Santander for a number of years now, where we have been working to eliminate alien species, exotic species, starting with our main priorities, the most invasive ones that were a particular cause for concern. That was why we decided to be active in the Live Stop Cortaderia project, contributing with an 8 hectares plot to the project as a demonstration site to see how to better eliminate Pampas grass in protected coastal areas and stopping it from invading further inland. We've been testing methodologies and new materials to better control the spread of Pampas grass. And I would like to highlight the directed herding activities to try and limit the colonization of this species using both sheep and goats as part of these herds. This is a fantastic example of how sometimes very low-cost activities can be most efficient in how we can tackle these species. We would like to continue with our engagement, making the most of our resources, our powers and competencies, and better collaboration and coordination, both with public and private organizations. So once again, our adherence to this strategy, we hope, is the best proof of our engagement, our commitment, and our collaboration with the Stop Cortaderia project. In 2021, we want to map the spread of Cortaderia in our territory, checking particularly parks and gardens and public spaces. And to do so, we would like to make use of European funding that is geared also for the recovery and restoration of degraded areas. That's all from me, and let me just stress that you have our full support. Thank you so much, Margarita. You are very right. The Council of Santander has been doing wonderful things for many years. I don't know if you've seen the Rostraderia site recently. I have, absolutely. I visited the plot some 10 days ago, and it's amazing what they're managing there. I was very, very pleasantly surprised, and it has to be said, it has to be known the success story. And the cherry on that cake will be seeing the herds of sheep that will do wonderful things for the maintenance of that plot. That's right, 8 hectares right next to the sea that used to be absolutely fully covered in Pampas grass, but it's not anymore. And let's hope that regermination is completely impossible thanks to the sheep soon. So we will now start with the last section for our meeting today, the private companies and third sector, starting with Mr. Juan Antonio Ruiz de Villa from the Spanish Roads and Mobility Department. Good morning. Well, we have been working in this field for a long, long time. I remember back in the 1980s when dual carriageways and motorways started in our country, really, which was a very good chance for Pampas grass to spread, unfortunately. And I remember that at the first meeting in 2005 for invasive species, that was the first time when we set the target against invasive species. The control of the spread has not always had the best human or financial resources, unfortunately, but we have had people who have done their best with what we had. Unfortunately, mistakes have been made along the way as well. And I'm thinking, for instance, that we haven't managed to cover areas that are closer to the coastline or the railway lines. I don't really know what else to add, to be honest. I just want to thank you very, very much for allowing us to be part of this strategy. Thank you, Toño. I think it has to be said that the roads department has always been very collaborative, and the A8 motorway in our region has been covered as much as you possibly could. So thank you for that work, Toño. Thank you. We will next be hearing the representative of the Public Works Regional Department, and we have Mr. Enrique Alonso on behalf of that department in the Regional Government of Cantabria. Good morning, Enrique. Good morning to you all. I hope you can hear me fine. Yes, loud and clear. Well, let me start with a word of thanks. Thank you for letting me be here, and I would like to apologize on behalf of our director who had a busy schedule today, unfortunately. The Urban Planning Department wanted to be part of this project. Spatial planning in our region, Cantabria, has always been very concerned with the spread of Pampas grass. We are going to do our very best, both in the implementation of actions and with management. The road network experts are doing their best already to eradicate invasive species in their areas. And we're particularly happy to see that this is a very inclusive project, hand in hand with AMICA, the association for people with disabilities and their families, those fantastic workers that eliminate invasive species every year with an annual cost of around 100,000 euros in our region. We are currently almost done with the new regional law on soil use, which we are certain will be very practical, most useful for other institutions and organizations to be able to use our know-how. The regional plan for spatial planning is totally open also to any suggestions, any information that you would like to send us so that we can study it and hopefully include it in the future drafting, the text of our document. That's all from me. Thank you. Thank you, Enrique, for your kind invitation. We will most definitely let you have some ideas, some concerns, particularly in how Pampas grass spreads in public infrastructures in other regions, whether it's in Portugal, in Aquitaine, in Galicia, in Asturias. They've been doing something very similar, pooling resources and collaborating. That's right. And land use, the regional land use law doesn't really allow for much of that collaboration, unfortunately. It says that it's owners of a particular piece of land that are responsible for that type of work. That's as far as it goes. But as I said, I'm sure that the new regulation that we are drafting just now will help solve some of these problems. So we are looking forward to hearing from your suggestions. Great. Thank you, Enrique, once again. And we will next hear from private companies that want to join the strategy, that want to tell us about their adherence to this strategy, which are often meant to be the baddies, right? Companies. Well, you'll see how they're not. Let's hear first from Mr. Juan Luis Sanchez, Director of Astander in Santander, the shipyards. Thank you very much. You said quite rightly that we mostly work with shipbuilding. We have done so for a long time. We're an industrial company. And we do so at one of the most picturesque and beautiful bays worldwide. I hope you can see some of the pictures to show you the landscape. That's a comparison before and after the work that has been carried out together with SEO BirdLife. Look what we have managed to do. We work in an area that is partly marshland, partly land that has been reclaimed from the sea. And because of a number of reasons, Pampas grass colonized practically the whole of the area that Astander works at. And not only that, we also had forest fires, wildfires, mostly in the summer, wildfires that were hard to extinguish in a number of cases. So we decided we had to learn from the experts. We talked to SEO BirdLife, to Amica, and we decided to eliminate Pampas grass, promote local vegetation, and after doing so, we have continued to learn in this field, improving the quality of the soil as well, very, very important, and also mulching. Mulching has been proven to keep Pampas grass seeds well away from germination. I hope I have managed to summarize how these activities have been a real priority for us, because we want to do the best, not just for our company, but also for our employees, for our customers, for our area. And our customers have congratulated us very, very much indeed, proving that we made the right decision. That's why we're here with you, to join the team, to give you our full adherence in this strategy to control the spread of this plant. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Juan Luis. I can tell you, I live in Astillero, the town, and just talking to people, to neighbors, to friends in Astillero, we are all very, very happy with what you've managed to do in our town, Astillero. Well, that's very nice to hear. Thank you very much for letting me know. When you make an effort, it's great hearing from somebody that they're very happy about it. Thank you. We will next be hearing from Jorge Oliveira. Mr. Oliveira is director of Solvay, the company. Good morning.
Bonjour, good morning.
I would like to particularly greet my Portuguese colleagues, Valentim and Enrique. I was feeling so sorry I can't be there with you for us all to share that bottle of port. I'm sure that the day will come sooner rather than later. I would like to be just very, very brief, telling you about Solvay, our company. Solvay has been in Cantabria, this region, for 112 years now. Solvay started because of the natural resources in Cantabria, raw materials such as chalk. And here in Cantabria were the reasons why our founders decided to settle in this region, in Cantabria. Then for some 80 years, chalk near the river mouth, the Cuchilla quarry. That was the start of the company. That quarry is not active anymore, and for quite a long time we have been carrying out activities for the restoration of that landscape, with better biodiversity, recovering the marshes, planting trees, and the control of invasive species. And all of this thanks to SEO BirdLife as well. Since 2015, Solvay decided to learn from this organization that has done so much for conservation. I'm talking about an area which was particularly difficult because of its geography, because of its degradation, because of limestone being present, and that's why we are currently working more specifically in the environmental restoration of the territories that had been invaded by Cortaderia, so that the former quarry will become a site to enjoy nature and biodiversity. How can we do so? Well, by having creative activities where people will be able to enjoy nature. There will be a geomorphological restoration, the activities in lagoons, and also the eradication of invasive species, particularly of Pampas grass. We will then replant local vegetation and display information at the site. And I'm not just talking about vegetation, because biodiversity also means mammals, amphibians, reptiles, the plantation of some 14,000 trees. That's why we're here with you at the Stop Cortaderia project. We have eradicated Pampas grass in some 20 hectares at our site. We now have local vegetation, we have cows and horses happily grazing, and providing a fantastic place for citizens to enjoy nature and visit nature. The Regional Government of Cantabria, the council, local council, and our company, Solvay, together with SEO BirdLife, have made this possible. Sustainable development activities that are part of our DNA at Solvay, that has been an active company for 150 years. And we're talking about the transformation from a mining site to a place for people to enjoy nature and biodiversity. I would like to thank you and congratulate you on everything that you have managed so far, and you will still manage hand in hand with us at Solvay too. Thank you so much, Jorge. You are absolutely right. Visiting the Cuchilla former quarry and seeing cows and horses grazing and leaving us their manure, very, very valuable manure as well, is a great experience. I can say that personally, I know that. We will now be hearing from the third private company that wanted to be here today for the launching of the Transnational Strategy for the eradication of Pampas grass. We will hear from Elena Iglesias, in charge of communications at Viesgo, the company. I hope you can hear me okay. Good morning, and thank you for allowing us to be here today and letting everybody know about the support that we're giving to this strategy. For 114 years, Viesgo has been working on energy generation, and you can probably understand that this motto we have of energy for the world we know has to go hand in hand with sustainability, socially, environmentally, and governance sustainability. Since we first heard a number of years ago now about the Stop Cortaderia project. Viesgo wanted to be an active part of it, also providing funding. We are very, very aware of how dangerous invasive species are, and also because we knew about the very stern partners that were part of the project. For instance, SEO BirdLife, different public institutions, other private companies in the area, leading firms. I would say this is a particularly valuable project also because of its social line, having Amica, Cerca, different organizations that work with people with disabilities, whether it's physical or intellectual disabilities. It is such a fantastic experience seeing these wonderful professionals passionately eradicating Pampas grass. I would like to thank them for the fantastic example they're setting. They're true role models. Maintenance of our facilities is logically one of the areas that we have been covering, and also areas where we are located, for instance, with our substations, where land, the soil is degraded, very poor in biodiversity, and that's why Stop Cortaderia has been working in the Astillero substation. Very soon it will cover a second site, and we want to showcase what can be done for future private companies that will be joining the strategy. I really want to express how proud and happy we feel at Viesgo to join the team and having partners such as the ones we've been hearing from today. And as Jorge said very, very rightly, please count on us to be able to control the spread of Pampas grass. Thank you so much, Elena. You are absolutely right. Amica, Sampro, Cerca. It's wonderful how people who are sometimes viewed as a burden to society, they're not at all. They're role models for our project. That's absolutely right, and society needs to know about that.
Okay, we've finished now the contributions of companies, businesses, and other organizations. And now, Guillermo Blanco, he's the Minister for Rural Development, Fishing, Livestock, Food and the Environment in the Government of Cantabria, is going to close this seminar, and he's now going to take the floor. Thank you, Santiago. I'll be very brief. As other participants have said, that Cantabria as a whole is adhering to this strategy, of course. We are adhering to the different actions that we are already launched with Stop Cortaderia project, but also with the restoration projects that we have submitted recently in a program called Cantabria Reactiva. And we are adhering also to the different initiatives of the municipal representatives of our region. These projects include the assistance to recovering degraded areas, giving subsidies to municipalities so that they can take part and work within their competencies around specific projects, as, for instance, the Saja-Besaya area recovery and the Santander metropolitan area recovery, especially for singular protected areas in our region within Natura 2000 network areas. The idea is to restore these areas. I'd like to thank for your participation It's a necessary meeting that we held today. Thank you to organizations, institutions, companies, businesses, all the people who attended. We've learned a lot today. We will continue to work together. We'll be united because we want to win this battle against Cortaderia. Thank you very much indeed to everyone. Okay, this is the end of this session. Thank you very much to all. We will continue to fight against Pampas grass. We'll see each other again. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Adiós a todos.
Ok. Adiós. Adiós.
Adeus, Valentim. Guarda-me um bocadinho esse vinho, está bem?
A nossa, vai lá. A nossa.
Está bueno.
Adiós, profesores.
Adeus.
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Jesús. Venga, hasta luego. Hasta luego.
Adiós. Hasta luego. ¿Dónde está?
Esto es el Zoom, ¿eh? O sea, se estaba viendo en YouTube, nosotros estamos viendo lo interno. En YouTube solo sale un plano. Bueno.
Cantabria en el foco, ¿eh?
Que la pena es que no nos ha escuchado el primero.
Bueno, para escuchar.
Es muy importante, ¿eh?
Sí, sí, pero bueno, a ellos lo que les está llegando es que aquí se está dando un proyecto y cuando han visto todo lo que estamos haciendo, ellos ven muchos proyectos.